Hi, creative friends. It's Elizabeth Sampson, the Doodle Nurse, and what you're watching here is my inspiration for this week's video. And you can see one fox here. Actually, there's two foxes, and this was during my morning chores. And I got to thinking about nature and everything in nature and how everything is symmetrical, everything comes in pairs, everything can be broke down to shapes. And that is the reason for my watercolor mandala this week. So as you watch these fox run through the arena and in the off to the pasture where the horses are, you can see my horses are on the right side of the screen here, just watching, and I'm just making sure that nothing bad goes down. But again, my inspiration comes from my surroundings, and from this I took the time to create a beautiful mandala and add watercolors to it. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and please watch it all the way through to the end. If you like it, give it a thumbs up, comment on the comment section, and make sure to subscribe to my channel for more of this content every week on Monday. As I bring out my pencil and I start to sketch. So what I'm going to do is try to find the center of my paper, and I'm using watercolor paper here because this is going to be a watercolor mandala, and I find the center with my ruler. And when I get that, I mark an X in the place that's the center. Once I get the center of the paper, I bring out the protractor and I line it up accordingly with my center marks. And I'm just gonna quickly trace the outside of the arc, and I'm going to go every increment along the way. So of course I flip it around and I do the next side, which you can see here. You don't have to do this, but I do this just so I can have a full circle to start working my mandala. And then I'm going to put that protractor back in place, and I'm going to do the increments. So what I'm going to do here is it's marked every 10 degrees. So what I'm going to do is every third row over. So every 30 degrees, I'm going to put a little mark so I know that it's 30 degrees. And I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to measure that up according with my center mark in the paper. And I'm just going to extend those lines from the 30 degree mark all the way down to the other side. So I have an exact straight line from one side to the other. Hopefully that'll make sense. Just keep watching and you'll see. What you'll see is I'm splitting this up into a pie section. So you can see it looks like sliver pieces of pie along the way. Hopefully that makes sense to you. And I'm going to do this all the way around with the 30 degree mark. Now what I'm going to do is grab my compass and put the pencil in. And I'm going to put the pencil in and I'm going to put it in the center of this circle. So the center of the mandala. And I'm going to create circles along the center, as you can see. And I did find out it's easier to move your paper than it is to move the compass. You're going to have to find out what works for you. But as I place the center, and I'm measuring up here 1 inch mark. So I want the circle to be 1 inch from the center. I place that in the center section, and I'm just going to make that go around so it's a 1 inch circle all the way around. Now, I do find out later it's easier to move the paper than it is to move the compass, so just keep watching and you'll see what I do. Now I'll bring my protractor out and I'll start marking the other increments along the way, which is every 10 degrees. I will put a mark and continue with my straight lines through the center circle. So every 10 degrees instead of every 30, now I will mark a line so I will be able to have some area to create my patterns. Now you can do this or you don't have to, it's totally up to you, but I wanted to give myself more option and more room to create these doodles within the mandala. So just keep watching. So I start by making more circles all the way around my center part, and I'm going to try and space them out along the way. First I started measuring and then I decided just let's eyeball it and see what we're going to do with this. So you can either measure it by your ruler, 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, or you can just eyeball as far apart as you want the circles to be. Now, if you have a circle template, you can also use that, but I found it easier to use the compass than the circle template, but whatever's best for you, feel free to use. So now I'm going to pencil in the beginning part of my mandala, and I'm just going to go up and I'm going to create little petals from the center section out for the center part of my mandala. And you can do whatever you want, you don't have to do this, but as you can see I follow a couple lines through, so every third line I create a shape that looks like a petal. Now the best thing about mandalas, it's just a simple repeat of a pattern all the way through, and you're going from the center section out each circle along the way. So as you can see here, I'm just going to go on with the next level, the next circle, and I'm going to create sort of like a petal or a leaf, whatever you want to call it. That's what I'm going to create, and it's going to go from one to the next. So as I'm starting from one line, I'm going out to the second line, making that the center, and then I'm going back on the third line. So that one petal encompasses 3 lines, and I'm going to go all the way around the mandala. So I'm going to bring my compass out and I'm going to make another line from the center, going out a little bit closer because I want to do another pattern. So you'll get the hang of this. You'll see exactly where you want to put your lines, and you'll be able to do that without any hesitation at all. So I'm just making this line go around so you can see where the line is. Of course, your patterns are your preference on whatever you want to do. I'm just going to create another line here, and I'm just going to let you look at how I do this along the way. I definitely make sure that the markers I bring out are waterproof, and so in the description box you'll see the markers that I use are microline. You can use any kind of waterproof marker, and that way it'll ensure that when you put the watercolors on they won't bleed, which is very important. If you're going to do the watercolors before, then it doesn't really matter. But if you're going to do the watercolors after, like I do, then you do want to make sure you have a marker that does not bleed. Okay guys, so I go off to the watercolor paints, and of course I forgot to turn the camera on. So what you're going to see is the finished product. And after I put the watercolor paint on, of course I laid some heavy objects on this to flatten my paper, but you can see how it turned out with the watercolor paints and just randomly putting them over the top of the paper. As you can see how it looks. So you can do the watercolor paints after or before, it doesn't really matter. It's just if you want to get the pencil lines in and you want to see them, then you're going to want to put the watercolor on after. So hopefully you enjoyed this week, the watercolor mandala. And if you really enjoy watercolors, then by all means check out these other 2 videos I have here on this screen. And I will see you again next week.